Hello Bridal Biz Club members. We are going to do a full breakdown of this beautiful soft glam but more glam soft glam look. It is a little bit shorter, so let me know what you think in the group chat. Okay, so I started with taking all of the hair off her face, anything extra. I prefer this electric trimmer over the razors just because I'm scared to cut someone. Then I went in with the Medicube Zero Pore Pads. I love these for a just gentle exfoliation. They work so well. Then I sprayed with the Daliba Vital Serum Spray. I love this prep. It is one of my favorite additions to my prep. Always the Lumify eye drops. I convince people that they need these because they really do. It makes all the difference in the world. And then I prep with tried and true Embryolisse. We didn't want to go anything too crazy because we were doing a little more on the glam side. So I really wanted the products to shine for themselves. So we kept the skin prep a little bit more simple. Went in with my Avocado eye cream. This is essential. And then I put the eye patches on top. I don't do eye patches that have like serums and stuff in them just because I want the eye cream to work on its own. So I use this to kind of lock in the moisture. I have been using the Anastasia Brow Freeze and I have been really liking it. It's a little bit more pliable, so it doesn't make the eyebrows stiff, but it keeps them in place, especially if you press them up against the skin. Went in with Brow Wiz and then the brow powder as well, both from Anastasia. I feel like their brow products are just really that girl. I have been doing either a combo of the base with the Hourglass or the Tarte Shape Tape. The Hourglass, I think if you have oily lids, is not really super great. It tends to crease. So if you have a little bit more drier lids, the Hourglass is going to work really well. I do powder that very liberally because I wanted a very smoky look. So I did that with the Huda Beauty powder. And of course, as always, my blending shade is going to be the bronzer that I use on her. Now for shadow, we ended up being pretty simple. I just used this one shade from the Patrick Ta palette and I kind of worked this up because we are going to be doing a very smoky wing. So I wanted to keep the shadows pretty simple. So I just kind of blended that into a kind of soft V shape on her eye, and I took it up pretty high because I wanted the depth to be up a little bit higher on her lid and not be just so focused towards the lash line. So when we're doing a smoky wing, what I like to do is I take a fluffy brush that is a little bit more pointed, so this has a lot of give to it so that I can blend very easily, and I start to map out my wing with the black shadow, and then I blend over top of it with that same brush that I used for the brown. And I just go back and forth until I'm happy with the blend of everything. I think when it comes to smoky looks, it's really about over and over steps going back and forth until you're happy with the final product. Then I did end up deciding that I wanted to do a really stark shimmer on her eyes, so I did carve out her lids with a pretty light shadow, a light concealer. This is the Tarte Shape Tape. I find that the Shape Tape is a better on top of powder concealer. I don't think that the Hourglass works very well for this. I don't think it plays very well. I then went in with the Hourglass Scattered Light eyeshadow. This is in the color Smoke. I love these. I have all of them. If you don't have these in your bridal kit, I think it is worth the investment. I think they are beautiful. I have all the shades and I use them all the time. They're so pretty. They are very sparkly, so just be aware of that. Then tried and true Artist Color pencil from Makeup Forever. This is a really nice pencil when it comes to making something smoky. It blends out very easily and very well. You do have a little bit of time to work with these pencils. They do dry down, so you don't have a lot of time, but you have a little bit more time than like a gel liner would, if that makes sense. So I very lightly go over kind of where I have the shadow, but I'm creating a little bit more of a tighter wing towards her lash line and carrying that towards the front of her eye. I did not carry the shadow towards the front of her eye because we still want that really crisp wing effect. So I do a very clean line in the front of her eye and then keep most of the smokiness and the shadow on the outer corners of her eyes, especially for her eye shape. She does have more hooded lids. That is also why we bring up that depth a little bit higher towards the brow bone because we still want to see the smokiness without it being too overwhelming. So we keep the darker shadow just on the lash line and smoke everything upwards so that she can still see the depth, but it's not super overwhelming and closes off her eyes too much. One thing I really want to stop seeing is gaps in liner and lashes, okay? You have to make sure that if you are doing a dark lash line, that you pull the liner all the way to the inner corner of the eye. That is one way for everything to look unblended, is to make sure that your lashes and your lash line liner does not connect. When you see a big gap, and it also depends on how your client's eye shaped are versus how much you need to do this. Some people's you don't, some people's you do, but it's very, very important to make sure that you connect everything together. So now I go back in with a little bit of a tighter pencil brush and I blend everything together with the black, so it looks like a little bit more of a seamless blend. I think when you work with a tighter brush, you can get a little bit more friction there. I wanted a very fluffy brush when I was trying to blend upwards, but right now we're just trying to blend the two, the powder and the eyeliner together to kind of create a more seamless blend. So I did that with a tighter pencil brush. Now I am using my favorite lash clusters. These are, I'll put the link down below. They go from 14 millimeters to 10 millimeters. So what I did on her eye is I did two 14 millimeters on the outer corner and then 4 12 millimeters. So the 12 millimeters go almost to where her eye color stops, if that makes sense. So a little bit past where her iris is. And then I did two 10 millimeter right in the front. These are very fluffy and I wanted them to be a little bit fuller in the center. Now, if you want a more cat eye effect, I would do 3 14 millimeters, skip the 12s and go straight to 10s. Then I clean up everything. These are these little orange sticks that I found on Amazon. I love them. I dip them in a little bit of Bioderma and they give you the sharpest wing you have ever seen in your whole life. I then contour everything with the Makeup by Mario stick. I love this stick for more glam looks. It has a lot of pigment and it stays very, very well in underpainting. So I use that to contour out her nose and her forehead and obviously all over and underneath her neck. And then I also went in with the Rare Beauty. This is Happy. I mixed it with a little bit of Joy to give it a little bit of a deeper undertone as well. Well, more of a warm undertone because Joy is a little bit more orange. Then Hourglass Vanish Concealer. Now, I will say I have kind of changed my technique when it comes to applying this. I think I have not been liking how stark the concealer is in the middle of her eye. So I have kind of adjusted to using a bit less of this and just doing it in the inner corner and the outer corner and blending it together. Some people that have a little bit more creasy eyes, this can tend to crease really, really bad on them. So I have been finding less of this product is a little bit more and is working a bit better for me. So if I had to do this over, I would just do a little bit less when it comes to the concealer, but we were going for a very glam look. So it does kind of help with the glamness of the look. Then I used the NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. We pulled quite a bit of coverage from the concealer, so she didn't really need like a super, super heavy foundation. So I went in with the kind of lighter, more skincare-y look. We're going to powder over top to give it that kind of glam vibe. So I just paint this on where I need it and then tap it in with my Makeup by Mario F5 brush. This has been my favorite way to apply this foundation. You can sheer it out if you buff it in, but I prefer this to kind of sit more in the medium coverage. So I think placing it and patting it in very, very gently works really, really well. And all of the skincare benefits that are in the foundation tend to mix with the skincare underneath, and it creates a really, really beautiful skin-like texture over time. So I just do that all over her face. I also want to make sure that I avoid putting foundation on top of the underpainting. Basically, what I like to do with my underpainting is just frame the foundation and blend the foundation on top of it instead of, because if you start buffing over top of that underpainting, you're going to end up with a muddy mess and then kind of negating the entire point of doing the underpainting. So be very gentle. You don't want to rub and buff. That's one thing that I see quite a bit with people in underpainting not working for them, is they are too aggressive when they go over top of it with the foundation. It also depends on what you underpaint with. You need to underpaint with something that's a little bit higher in pigment, but that dries down a little bit so that the skin, nothing's moving around on top of the skin, specifically if you have a lot of skincare put down already. Then I do a pretty hefty bake on her with the Huda Beauty. These are the Easy Bake powders. I love these. I think they're wonderful. I was a hater at first, but since they have destroyed my Givenchy dreams, I have switched to this and I've been really, really happy. I also really like the Makeup by Mario powders. I don't think they are baking powders. They are definitely more finishing powders, so I do use that for finishing most of the time. Then I go over top with the NARS bronzer and then a House Labs blush. This is the Dragonberry blush. I go over top just to give her a little bit of pop on the cheek. I wanted a little bit more blush than what we had done, so I went over with that like super bright pink just to give a nice contrast because we were going for a little bit more glam. This is more of a, I call it like leaning more towards the side of glam in the soft glam category because it's still not like a crazy amount of makeup, but it is more glam on the soft glam situation. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I feel like you guys know what I'm talking about. Then I do everything. I literally melt everything down with the powder melt from One Size. I love this for kind of blending everything together. I am not a huge fan of the super stark contrast between like powders and lines and all of that on the skin. I prefer to make everything look more blended, and this is the perfect product to do it. Then I take the same just black shadow and I smoke it underneath, and then I apply a very, very liberal amount of mascara. Like when I say liberal, I mean I did probably like 4 or 5 coats of mascara. I wanted a very, very dark lash look. I love the Benefit Cookie Highlighter for a inner corner highlight. I think it just looks so beautiful on most, if not all, skin types. It's just such a pretty one for the inner corner, not necessarily on the cheekbone. Sweet Tea Lip Liner from Morphe. It is such a pretty brown. It is not like too dark brown. It's not too light brown. And it's very, very almost like chocolatey, but not dark. I don't know how to explain it. It's just such a pretty color. Like, am I wrong? It's so pretty. And then I topped that off with the Kate lipstick from Makeup by Mario. These are the suede ones. I just did a very, very light amount of that in the middle, and then I topped it with the Tower 28 Almond Lip Gloss. This is such a pretty lip combo. This was the first time that I had mixed all of these together, and I just loved them on her skin tone. I feel like because she has such a warm undertone, that just like warmness but slightly kind of pink undertone was so, so, so pretty. Then I do another layer of powder melt, and I blend everything with the more dense side of the F5 brush. It does have a little bit of foundation on it, so it just blends everything together. You have to be very careful with this because if the foundation is too wet, so if you spray too much, you're going to lift the foundation with the brush. So you want to do a very, very light mist and then tap on top to kind of blend everything together. Please, 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 if it is too wet, let it dry, because if you start patting with the brush, you are going to lift up any of the product underneath. So please be careful with this technique. I have screwed myself many times and had to fix it, and that is kind of what I have figured out, is if it's too wet, it will not work very well. Go back in with the Easy Bake powder, and I just put that anywhere that I feel like needs to be a little bit more matte. So kind of through the T-zone. She has generally kind of oily skin, so we went back through and just patted over top of that whole entire situation, just where it needed to be, made sure that everything was nice and smooth and airbrushed. You also could do this with the One Size baked powders or the Charlotte Tilbury airbrush. I tend to go back and forth with this, especially if I need a bit more coverage. I will do the Charlotte Tilbury or the One Size ones, but we didn't necessarily need more coverage. We were just kind of going for the blurring effect, so I just used the same loose powder that I used to do the finishing. Then topped everything off with the Live Tinted. This is the shade Dawn. If you've been around here long enough, you know how much I love the Live Tinted. These are the Hue Glow Drops. They are amazing. They are so beautiful. They're not sparkly. They just have a beautiful light shimmer, and they just give the skin almost kind of like an oily effect, but it doesn't look greasy, and it gives a very light shimmer. It's just the perfect marrying of all of the things, in my opinion. they don't have a very strong scent. That's kind of why I don't love the Sol de Janeiro, is I don't want it to mix with my bride's perfume, because a lot of them spend time to curate a very specific scent, and I don't want to throw a bunch of scented things on top of them so that it mess with the scent that they have. Anyway, so moving on, One Size Until Dawn, sprayed her chest and her face with that very, very liberally, and there we go. We have this smoky, dramatic look that still kind of airs on the soft glam scale. Here's a very up close look and a nice pouty lip. We love this look and we were obsessed.